The Grand Prix series is a yearly set of 6 competitions that happens in the first half of the season for figure skating. And it's 6 events. Each of those events is generally relatively small compared to a lot of the other bigger internationals in the fall of the season. And skaters are competing not just to place at those Grand Prix events, but they're also competing to place high enough so that their combined placement can get them into the Grand Prix final. And for a lot of people, the Grand Prix final in prestige is just slightly lower than Worlds, 4 continents, and the European Championships. For me, it's really the second biggest competition of the season because it is fully international. It is based on qualifying from a series of events, and it's the biggest thing that happens before all the big things happen in the second half of the season. Grand Prix assignments come out generally in June, although it's been very different in the past depending on the year. And I think part of the reason is that the ISU doesn't really think it's that big of a deal that they're revealing the Grand Prix assignments. But because of some of the implications of what happens, skating fans are looking to just know who is in these competitions, but also they're looking for signs of announcements. So anyone who's retired who hasn't said anything, any new partnerships that have formed but they have not said anything, any splits that may have happened that have not been announced, all of those things, they're indications in these Grand Prix assignments. And so over the past 5 to 10 years, it's kind of been the big off-season news that we have been expecting in the figure skating community. So with the Grand Prix assignments impending, we have no idea when they're going to come, but they are likely coming very soon. This video is going to talk about all of the things about how the selection process works, who is getting automatic spots. And I will caveat this by saying that this is based on the Grand Prix selection criteria rules of last season, so the 2025-26 season. And so things may have changed since then, and nobody outside of the ISU knows about it. My guess is it didn't change because otherwise I think something would have been announced. But I will also caveat to say that some of the language in the Grand Prix assignment rules or selection rules is not the most precise. And so there are times when things are a little bit open to interpretation, and I will point those out as we get through them. So let's start with the guaranteed spots. There are 3 ways to get yourself at least 1 guaranteed spot at the Grand Prix. The first is placement at last season's World Championships. The top 6 from each discipline are called seeded skaters, and they get 2 spots each. The seeds are based on their placement at World. And the reason they are called seeded skaters is that 1, 2, and 3 are in a group, and then 4, 5, and 6 are in a group. And the skaters within those 2 groups cannot face each other within those 2 groups during the 6 Grand Prix events. So the first seed can't face third seed in any of the 6 Grand Prix events. The first time they would be able to do that would be the Grand Prix final if they make it there. If there are, quote, vacancies that open up because someone retired, or like Yuma Kageyama has announced that they are taking the season off, the next highest placement then moves up to the seeded skaters group. Now, if you place 7th to 12th for singles, and 7th to 10th for pairs and ice dance at last season's World Championships, you are then also guaranteed 2 spots as what is called an invited skater. There are no seeds associated with these, so they can be assigned to face anyone. And there's also a rule on openings, but this is where the whole precision of language comes in, because the wording is that if there are any, quote, retirements, then the vacant places will be completed with the next ranked skaters. Now, the fact that they use the word vacancy in the seated skaters section, and then they use the word retirements in this section drives me nuts. But this is widely interpreted as any sorts of openings, whether it is because someone moved up because they were an invited skater but then became a seeded skater, or someone has retired, or someone is taking a year off. It's widely interpreted that the next ranked skater from Worlds moves up to fill up the list. So that means there are always 12 spots taken by the seeded skaters in each discipline. And then there are always 12 spots for singles and 8 spots for pairs and ice dance that are taken up by the World's placements. There are 2 other ways to get a guaranteed spot, and that is to either be in the top 24 of world standings, which takes the last 2 seasons of results into account, or to be in the top 24 season's best scores from last season. And this gives you 1 guaranteed spot. And then the host competitions can always pick these 1 spotters for a second spot, but it's not guaranteed. So then let's look at each discipline and who is guaranteed spots. For the women, currently, 2nd through 13th from Worlds would get the 2 spots. Now, that's because Kaori Sakamoto has retired. And so Nina Petrikina, who was 7th at Worlds, moves up to the seeded skaters group. And similarly, Heian Lee, who was 13th, moves up to the invited skaters group. If anyone else then out of those is out, then Ida Karhunen is next up for 2 spots. Now, this one is interesting because Ida Karhunen does not actually qualify for a guaranteed spot in either the top 24 world standings or the top 24 seasons best. So she could get 2 guaranteed spots if she moves up into this group, or she could get no guaranteed spots at all, and she would have to have one of the host nations actually pick her to be able to go into the Grand Prix. The guaranteed 1 spots then go to the rest of the skaters in the world standings and the season's best lists. So this includes a lot of skaters who didn't go to Worlds, like Olympic champion Alyssa Liu, and 4-time world junior champion Mao Shimada gets an automatic spot because of her world standing, and she's going to be debuting in the senior circuit this coming season. Now, there are a few others here who are on the list but don't qualify. So Hannah Bath and Mayuko Oka are both not old enough to go to seniors. And then Adelia Petrosian, as of the recording of this video, is amongst the top 24 seasons best, but Russia is still currently banned from ISU competitions. So that means 38 of the 72 spots for the women on the Grand Prix have been taken up, and 34 are left to be filled. For the men, it's very similar because you also have to go to the 13th place at World in order to fill up those guaranteed 2 spots. That's because Yuma Kagiyama has already said he's taking the season off. And so Kevin Amos moves up to the seeded skaters group. And then Kirila Marsak moves up to the invited skaters group. Now, there's a question as to whether Ilya Malinin is going to skip the Grand Prix because he's hinted at that in some of the interviews. And so if that's the case, Vladimir Samoylov then moves up to get the 2 spots. Now, he's also in that same position as Ida Karhunen. So he either gets 2 guaranteed spots or he doesn't get any guaranteed spots at all, and he would have to wait until one of the host countries actually picks him. For the 1 spots, again, similarly, the Olympic champion is in here. So Mikhail Shidorov is guaranteed 1 spot. He did not go to Worlds. And Peter Gomenik is, like Adelia Petrosian, currently ineligible because of the Russia ban. And finally, Tomoki Iwatashi has retired. So similar to the women, we have 38 of the 72 spots assigned, and 34 spots are left to be filled. For pairs, the top 10 from Worlds seems to be intact for those guaranteed 2 spots. But if any of them are out, then the next one will actually be Gabby Izzo and Luke Meyerhofer, who were 14th at Worlds because 11th, 12th, and 13th have either split and or retired. And then for the guaranteed 1 spots, here is the great pairs shakeup of 2026. It's decimated this field, and so much so that I had to actually bold the names that were not crossed out because it was getting so messy in order for you to actually read it. But even amongst this group, we don't know if all of them are still together and or still competing. So we will see what happens, but there could very well be things that will happen here that will indicate that there are other splits and or retirements that are going on with this group. And then finally, in the top 24 seasons best scores, we have Plazas Fernandez, who are guaranteed one spot. And then Bakary Guarise, also guaranteed one spot, but neither of them have said anything about their future. And Lucrezia Beccari had recently just had surgery. So it's very possible that that spot will not be given to them because they are either not ready or they're not skating anymore. So we will find out very soon. For ice dance, there is a big question mark as to what the status of Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier is, because Piper was just announced to have joined the coaching team that taught her and Paul. So is that a soft retirement? Is she going to coach and skate at the same time? We will see. Amongst that top 10 from Worlds, Lajoie and Lega have split, and therefore Mrazkova and Mrazek move up to get the 2 spots. And so if any other teams are out of this, for example, Gillis Poirier, then the next team that goes up will be Green and Parsons. Now, if you look at the 1 spots, we know that Chalk and Bates are taking the next season off, and they don't know what their future plans are. Lim and Kwan and Fabry and Ayer have split. And World Junior Champions Aboyan, Veselukin are age ineligible for seniors. And so then the last thing is we have a question mark of whether the Shibutanis are continuing, as they have not said anything public, but we know that they came back last season for the purpose of qualifying for the Olympics, so we don't know whether or not they are thinking about continuing. So that makes 33 out of the 60 spots assigned and 27 spots still remaining to fill. So who then fills those remaining spots? There are a lot of spots to fill. There is then a list of other criteria that can get you into the Grand Prix. And it's not as complicated as this looks. It's just a lot of words. But the first thing is host picks. The host country of each of the Grand Prix can have up to 3 entries in each discipline. And so they can fill that with 1 or more of those spots with skaters who aren't in the seeded or invited skaters criteria. And the wording is that the host picks should, quote unquote, should be in the top 75 seasons best list. So the operative word is should, because I'm almost certain that there have been skaters who were picked for these host picks that have not been in the top 75 seasons best list. The hosts can also pick from a number of different sources. The first is that they can give the second spot to skaters who have already gotten a spot as an invited skater. So the Alyssa Lius and Mikhail Shadorovs of the world are almost certainly going to be getting a second spot through that. They can also then give a spot to a comeback skater. And the comeback skater rule is that a skater or team who has been in the top 6 at Worlds over the past 10 years, so starting for these purposes, starting with 2017 Worlds, and took 1 or more seasons off, are given priority consideration for 1 or 2 spots. And this can only be used once for skaters in their career. Then the one that is of interest to a lot of people is the returning split couple rule. So a pair or ice dance team who were in the top 7 to 12 at Worlds in the past 3 seasons, who has split up and then come back with a new partner, can be part of the pool. This is where the wording once again drives me nuts, because it literally says, quote, placed in this top 7 to 12, unquote. So does that mean, is it the top 12, or is it that they're saying that the top 1 through 6 don't count? Just call it the top 12. That's what we're calling it. And then there's the injury rule. So the return skater and couple is someone who has been in, again, the top 7 to 12 at the 24 or 2025 World Championships, but were out last season. So those are people who could have been out because of injury or because of other reasons. And then other than that, if you're on the Junior Worlds podium, or if you were the Junior Grand Prix final champion and you're age eligible, you're in the pool. And then finally, if you are in the top 75 season's best score from the previous season and you're age eligible, you are then also in the pool to be picked. It is important to note that there's no particular order in which hosts have to pick these skaters who are part of the pool, except for the comeback skaters who are supposed to be given priority. But for replacements, after this initial list comes out because of withdrawals, the replacement then has to come in ranked order of the season's best list. So that's a way for it to be fairer for withdrawals to get the call, and also not just for fairness, but for skaters who know that they are next up to be able to be prepared that they may have to take an alternate spot at any point. So then let's talk about how these comeback skater, returning split couple, and returning skater rules affect skaters that we know. Now, the comeback skaters rule has been used in the past by a number of skaters, and the Shibutanis and Wenjing Sui and Song Han both got 2 assignments last season because of this rule, for example. Now, Gabby Daleman was a world medalist within the last 10 years. So she qualifies for this rule. And it is possible that she didn't use this rule last year because she wasn't ready in time for Grand Prix assignments. So who knows? We're not really sure. Here's a wording thing. Technically, Shoma Uno and Rika Kihira, who have been at Worlds over the last 10 years, they technically qualify because of the way the rule was written. The precision of the rules is a thing, i.e., they did not say that you have to come back in the same discipline that you placed in the top 6 at Worlds. But I imagine this is only applicable for skaters who are coming back to their previous discipline. Now, do we have any other comeback skaters we haven't heard about? It would be a real surprise if someone came out of the blue and we had no idea about them. So for the returning split couples, we actually have a bunch. Katie McBeath and Balazs Nagy are in there because Katie McBeath and Daniil Parkman were 12th at Worlds last year. Star Andrews, I have completely forgotten to add that. Star Andrews and Daniil Parkman are also in there because McBeath and Parkman were 12th at last year's Worlds. Audrey Shin and Spencer Howe are in there because Chen and Howe were 12th in 2024. Ganesh and Zandron of Uzbekistan are in there because Ganesh and Shigirev were 10th in 2025. And then lastly, Marjorie Lajoie and Jean-Luc Baker are in because Lajoie and Lega were in the top 10 last year. Then there is then the possibility for Emily Chan, Sarah Conti, Anna Vaipen-Law, Mikhail Wozniak, and probably others. All of these skaters were in the top 12 in the past 3 seasons and have indicated that they want to continue. And finally, return skater. Now, I couldn't find anyone who qualifies for this one. My guess is nobody qualifies for the return skater rule. So there's your Splainer for the Grand Prix selection rules. Now it's time for us to keep refreshing our feeds and wait for these assignments to drop.